Plainfield Board of Selectmen meeting for September 26th, 2022. I would ask that you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And roll call.
Mark Cagney.
Scott Gardner.
Kevin Cunningham. And item C, to approve the meeting minutes of the Board of Select meeting from 9/12/2022.
We both found one correction.
My cousin over there. We need to amend the minutes to, it reads currently towards the bottom of paragraph 2, Mark Gardner.
Yeah, again.
So,
Okay, I can fix that. Any
clearly
other?
ours doesn't want to be associated. So.
On the third page,
Okay.
item 6, should be already writing instead of May.
That's that auto fix again. Okay.
That's it.
So with those two corrections, anything else? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for 9/12/22 with the two corrections.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Check that auto correct. All right, item D, public comment. Anybody here from the public wishes to speak? This is the time. I would like to have it as a continued flow through, but we're not going to be able to now. So. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing no other comment, we go into no old business. We go into item F. New business, consider to act on tax refunds as requested to the tax collector totaling $729.78. Carl Laporte, $52.84. Carl Laporte, $31.70. Hyundai Leasing Titling Trust, $78.65. A-Car Leasing Ltd, $382.61. Lloyd T. McBroom and Diane P. McBroom, $23.94. Susan J. Morgan, $28.33. Kristen M. Scalpin, $76.46, Sheila M. Millette, $45.55, and Timothy M. Edwards, $9.71. Hopefully I did the math right, and it should be $729.78. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve the tax refunds in the amount of $729.78.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 2, in your package, discuss and act on appointment of Town of Plainfield Tree Warden via Connecticut General Statutes 2358. We have not had a tree warden in for 4 years. I approached the previous tree warden, who is also a member of the Highway Department, and asked, is there a reason why you didn't want to do this? The simple answer was, well, the town wasn't offering, a few years ago, wasn't offering to pay for the class, which was $75, and then a small stipend. So searching around, you can't find anybody out in the field that outside of the town employment who would be willing to be a tree warden. Couldn't find anybody that wanted it either. So I said, well, what would it take to have you reconsider that? Simple. He wanted to get us to pay for the $75 annual class and certification and a small stipend, which he would have to do outside of his town hours. So we can't mix that up because it would make it into a union contract issue. So he has agreed to do so. So you see the statute as it reads. Of course, I left the paperwork that he had left here. Bear with me a second. Of course, I left the paperwork in my office. So well, to make it proper, why don't we call for a 5-minute recess?
I'll move that we recess for 5 minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Promise me back in the last.
moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
708. All right. Henry Dexter, we would like to do that position. I wanted to add a few more things in so you understand. The town of Plainfield would have to apply back for the tree wardens of Connecticut through the state of Connecticut. There's a deep forestry that we have to do, so I would do that. I would also put it up on the town website as to who our tree warden is, and just follow all those powers and duties for the tree wardens via the statute. So at your pleasure, I would hire back our tree warden.
What would the
Stipend
stipend
be
be?
$2,000 a year.
Okay.
Yep, you would do it after hours duties.
Do you need that in the motion?
That would be appropriate.
Okay.
And then we pay for his training, which is at this point. You don't have to put a number for the training because it could change next year, so.
Actually, a couple questions about it. Is this for a 2-year term?
Yep.
Like
So you
the
have to
statute
think,
says?
starting now to the, we would probably put it up to the end of the fiscal year. This is 22, so we're looking at somewhere, well, this date, 2024, to make it 2 years, right?
No.
It's just
So
put
maybe
us.
it's September 26th?
And also seeing in the language in the text here that there's about a deputy tree warden. Is there any
It's not
expectation?
required, you don't have to have that, I have to check with the state, so at this point we're good.
That's with cities.
Yeah, well, we have such large areas to cover.
And they have boroughs. I did have a couple more questions. It says in section 2359, the powers and duties, that they're responsible for all trees and shrubs, whether in whole or part.
The concern for the state of Connecticut is the trees, because they had that issue before with the dying trees we had with
With the gypsy moths.
gypsy moth.
The reason I ask
Mhm.
is because they say he's responsible for pruning. No, okay. And what about the section about removing signs, illegal signs off of poles?
That's well, if we're talking about telephone poles, that's totally different, and it's in conflict with this, because telephone poles fall underneath a different statute for telephone poles.
It says the tree warden shall remove or cause to be removed all illegally erected signs or advertisements placed upon poles, trees, or other objects.
I've been through this before, many years ago.
Okay.
I wanted to do something about that because you noticed that pretty much a third of the telephone poles have things, not just yard sales, but also advertisements for plowing or different activities. And the state is very clear about that, that the power companies are the ones who are responsible for that. So we really couldn't even touch anything.
Okay. So they need to update.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to be asking the legislature to think about doing some modifications to this as well.
That was it, I think. And the reason I asked about pruning, because when they cut the brush,
Yep.
when they cut the branches, I know about pruning as far as cutting my shrubs and trees.
Yep.
That when you cut every branch, they grow dully afterwards instead
Depending on the type
of
of
cutting the tree itself. So that was my concern.
Yep.
Was that the roadsides would get even thicker if they just cut it with the
But again, it would depend
the
upon
arm
the
of
tree.
the thing.
Certain trees, once you cut it, that's it.
Okay. That's my own question.
All right. So I would entertain a motion to add,
I'll make a motion to appoint Henry Dexter to be our town Plainfield tree warden with a $2,000 a year stipend, and it will come. It will be for the term until 26 September 2024.
and to pay for his annual training, licensing.
Yeah. And pay for the annual licensing.
Okay.
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye. All right, ordinance 13, item 3, discuss and possibly act on ordinance 13, the ordinance concerning mobile homes, mobile parks, trailers, and trailer parks. So Art, you've been doing a little research on this one, it comes back to what, 67?
Yep.
1967 this was enacted, and I asked the town clerks to look back in the history of when this was ever collected. And there's a simple answer is never. Not once have we ever collected the annual fee for $100 for that. So it just goes on and on. We have 3 trailer parks that are listed as trailer parks in the town of Plainfield. We do inspections through the fire marshal. We will go do annual inspections now. So I just didn't know how you wanted to approach this.
There are 3 fees in there anyway.
Yeah.
There's $10 fee, a $50 fee, and a $100 fee. I don't think it's the fee so much. I mean, I could care less about that. But I did have a question about that. The apartment complexes, like Pondview, Moose Gardens, do they have to license with the town like this? I see this is the biggest.
This is all just mobile homes, but I'm not sure about that. Can't answer to that question.
Okay.
I don't think they do.
Because I think that the biggest thing with this ordinance was the licensing requirements, that they have all this information in section 5 filed with the town. I mean, as far as the fee, like I said, it doesn't matter to me. But as far as getting rid of this ordinance, I don't know if we should even do that.
Well, it talks about the Director of Health having to also certify it. So you see where it says Director of Health?
Yeah. With sanitary requirements. But the licensing, they want the name and that address, operator, owner, description of the park. I don't know if they change, they take them out, whatever location they do to that. All this information. We're not going to have any more mobile parks because that was ended in '67.
So take a look at section 10 of this. So is the town of Plainfield going to now ask for those fines, daily fines, since 1967?
Well, so I'm saying, the fees, it doesn't matter to me. If you want to take out the fees, is one thing. But I'm saying, as long as we have mobile home parks, we should have an ordinance about mobile home parks. And they should have to file for this license, whether they're charged or not. They should have this information. Every time the park is sold to somebody else, the town wouldn't know because they're not required to. So that's my thinking.
Personally, I'd like to see this go to the attorney because I want to make sure that we're not doing anything against the state statute. And there is a state statute about it.
Okay.
So I think I need more guidance from the attorney as to how we proceed with this. Because I'm certainly not looking at penalizing somebody way back in 1967.
No, absolutely not. And also in this ordinance, it addresses mobile homes on single-family lots, on a single lot. So I think the rules still need to be there for people to see. If we want to take out the fees, that's fine. And then when we do work this up, I made some typos.
Okay.
So I marked them. I'm going to go through the whole ordinance book again, proofreading on that, so. So if you want, I'll make a motion to table this until you speak with the lawyer.
Art made a motion to table the ordinance 13 until we speak with the attorney.
I will second.
Thank you. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I just wanted to let you know on item 4, basically there is a discussion because the Planning and Zoning Commission had put a 6-month moratorium on issues related to cannabis regulations. So with that, I asked for the chairperson of the Planning and Zoning. I asked for planning office, both Marianne and Ryan. I did ask for not just the chair and vice chair of the Planning and Zoning. We'll be sitting in on the Zoom meeting, also the chief of police and the deputy chief. Because what we could come up with could impact what the police have to then deal with. So if it's certain zones that it has it in, how are they able to respond to issues there? If we go forward with it, if we don't at all, how do we then write up an ordinance to say that we don't? So there's a lot of things that are involved in this, and I wanted to do that. So I'm going to have a meeting with them this Thursday at 4:30, about 90 minutes, and we'll be discussing all those issues. If you have a concern with what is being proposed through other towns, and you say, look, I saw another town that does this, what your concerns are, please, forward that over, and we can talk about it at the meeting. So I just wanted you to know that that is happening. Item 5 is listed here. It says discuss and act on advisory building committee. I can give you a little background on it, but I'll let you know that we're not going to act on this at all because we don't need to. The item was that the Board of Education had found a grant that was a matching grant allowing them to apply for fixing up of HVAC, because HVAC is a new way to get grants now. They just opened that process up last week. So he was looking and reviewing it, and there's a matching grant available for it for each of the schools, but probably picking one to start with. We're talking about $1.5 million grant, which means that the town would have to go to the general fund for $750,000. We had the meeting. It was immediately discussed about not doing that because it does bring the general fund down to 10%. But we had spoken with Ken prior to Paul coming in about a different way of doing things, and we talked about there are 2 bonds that are currently on the in the budget right now, which should roll off in 2 years. We talked about how the interest rates are not good, so if you went out to a bond anyway, the interest rates would be devastating. So the idea really is to let those 2 bonds roll off, be done, and then make sure that we're looking at a good time to go out to apply for a bond to do the HVAC systems at all of the schools versus just one at a time. Doing so, you're looking at putting the bonds pretty much back to what they were about a year ago with the numbers. So it's not a devastating effect to your budget. It will be a small increase, but it's not a devastating effect. We'll get those numbers, try to figure them out, and work as a team, which we have been doing. We sat down with the superintendent, the chair and the vice chair of the Board of Ed. We sat down with the chair of the Board of Finance. We talked with the superintendent and the business manager from the Board of Ed, and also Kelly from our Board of Finance, and myself. And we sat down and talked about these things, so we're trying to get on the same page as to how we attack it. The only one problem we would have is this. If one of those particular units was to fail, they would have to come back to the Board of Finance to request monies out of the general fund, but we're not looking at $1.5 million. We're looking at more like about between $100,000 and $200,000 for that unit, one unit only, to come in to fix it and put it up. That would at least push us out a little bit to allow us to get to the next stage, which was putting the whole thing onto a bond. So I just want you to know that's what that was about. He asked to put up an advisory building committee, but when we actually sat down and talked about it, we were looking, and I don't mean to offend or anything, it's just that he had an advisory building committee. They're local residents and they have their specialties, which is great, but what they were looking for in here was not a tech, but an actual engineer. And so we were looking for an HVAC engineer. And so we can't just reach out and do that. And they wanted to buy 2 months, have them on board, have a meeting, review each of the buildings, come back with a detailed analysis of every building through an engineer's eyes, and have a document. So that way they could have even applied for that grant. So that's why we talked about it. We said we're going to scrap the whole idea. So I just wanted you to know that's what it was about. We do have plans out there, but it's going to just take a little while to figure out the numbers and go forward. So
You mentioned all the schools. Is it all the schools?
Yep.
Every single one?
Everyone has one issue or another. Best example I can give was I was on the Board of Education in the year 2001. Back then we were told about the heating system, which was you go to a hotel and you got the one mounted on the wall on the side, and the ones that they purchased never should have, because those things were rated for hotels no higher than Georgia. So it was a bad deal to start with. They've been living with it, patching it up, putting in different heating systems in the meantime to try to get through it. That was in 2001. So this is like 20 years later, 20 plus, and we're still talking about the same issues. So it's time to do it the right way, think it through, go to a bond, and that would be the way to go. So we still have other things to talk about with that whole process as well. But yeah, that's a lot of doing. And I asked the question, well, if we bonded, can we then be able to close all the schools in the summertime to have everything all done at once? Because that's a big undertaking. So it would have to be probably phased in over a couple of years. Or at least that way the bond is ready to go and you can put your contract down. that's pretty much it. Without anything else on the agenda, nothing to be added, other, that's about it. So I'll call for
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
At 7:23, thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
By going the bond route, that puts us out of the grant program, correct?
Oh,
We'd still be able to apply for
Yep.
grants, they'll still be open in 2 years.
yep. I mean, some of these things have changed over the last year and a half, 2 years.
Yep.
I mean, the IIJA monies are available, which is great. The question is, how do you apply for them? Do we have support from, like Joe? I know Joe always does. But, you're going to work your way through what the grants are and what they're available for. This one, very specific to the State Board of Education, was for HVAC. So they thought they'd at least look at it. And once they looked at it, they realized at the end of the day, it's just,
And in all honesty, they need to do a complete upgrade. They can't just,
yeah.
they can't replace the equipment and keep the control package. The control package is
Yep.
terrible to do this.
The only thing,
Especially Memorial.
it's funny to say
The
about
technicians are scared of that system.
that when they did the fire over there, and they put back together the part of the roof line that was bad, now they did a better job of it. Much better ventilation because they did it the right way now. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. It can't just be patchwork, it has to be done the whole thing.
Yeah, because I guess, from what I understand, that's pneumatic over electric in there. And if those pneumatic motors fail, the electric can stay on, the fan might not be running.
Yep.
And because when we had the fire there, the technicians that had worked in that building in the past were kind of scared, because that's what they thought might happen. But it turned out to be an exhaust fan.
Yep. And it came down onto the chair that was there and started everything up.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right, they have botched in electric heat elements in 2001 to make it work.
Yeah. I
I talked to the technicians that did it.
21 years again, and we're still talking about the same exact stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Matter of fact, it's still even further. If you think about, now we've got the high school, and some of those units have to be reviewed and monitored.
That's what I'm surprised about,
Yeah,
that the high school needs work too.
well, you look at the technology.
And it's 20.
That was 2005, now the technology's really raised itself up even more. So,
It's completely changing, and it's getting harder and harder. And the older stuff is getting harder to maintain.
or find
Part
parts.
availability is getting really tough.
Yeah,
You get the grant funds first and then bond?
we can do it either way, but the problem with taking the grant funding, again, is the fact that you have to take money out of your general fund. Most of them are matching.
If interest rates are hovering between 8 to 14%, then that might still be the most advisable
Yep.
path, right?
We talked about monitoring it monthly, so we can keep an eye on what's happening. And that makes it easier, so when you sit down and say, okay, what's our best avenue at the end of this year, what's our best avenue for the following? So we'll look at all those things. It just has to keep on, we have to keep talking to each other, working it out. So they were happy with the idea of doing it all in one shot.
Like you said, the summer time frame, we're trying to stagger how you would define the scope of work and then the time frame in which you're going to be able to actually execute that. That's a
You
tough
could
one.
possibly do a purchase of items, and then just stagger out when you can actually do the work.
You could do it all at once, but you're gonna require multiple contractors and that's right.
That's what I mean.
It'll just become a logistics nightmare.
Well, you have the same contracts.
Because you can get a union operation in here that would just, they could get the manpower to get it done, but you're gonna pay for that.
Question of the costs, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll find out when that happens, we'll be able to do the right bidding process, and after we find out from the state what's available. The state's actually just said that if you went through the grant, you get 71% of state monies for it, but you're still talking about 29% of their money, so you're still 300,000. We still don't have the 300,000 at this point, so he talked to me today about it. I said, it's probably not a good idea, because yeah, I was thinking the same thing. You're not gonna get the money out of the general fund right now. When it gets healthier, things go back into it, sure. But we have to be very careful about how we do it over the next couple of years. Keep talking, keep planning it out.